If you missed your favorite show or interview, visit episodes on our website at theworldtoday.news. Now there really is no reason to miss out on anything on theworldtoday.news.
They rise before the sun, boots in the dirt, kids on the hip, always ready to work. She's wrangling stock, then driving red trucks, fights the flames while earning 0 bucks. Painted the truth on a tanker side, ditch the itch, now they can't hide. Some say it's rude, we say it's bold. We're done being quiet, we're breaking the mold. Return. They've raised their kids and towns as one. This all-girls crew saying what must be done. Red tape choking, bills run deep, promises broken while we all lose sleep. All they asked was to be heard. Now they're labeled for speaking words. Victorians gotta flick the switch, 'cause labor taxing us to bits. We're working hard, but we aren't rich. So come on, let's ditch the glitch. Yeah, ditch the glitch. No apologies for telling the truth. It's the raw voice of regional youth. From Southwest Plains to the Gippsland Hills, it's time to glitch. Listen to the people's way. So here's to the women who carry it all, while cowards in suits just let us fall. If honesty burns, then light the fuse, 'cause we've got nothing left to lose. Victorians gotta flick the switch, 'cause labor are taxing us to bits. We're strong and proud, but we ain't rich. Stand up loud and ditch the glitch.
The Glitch, John Houston, CFA fighter extraordinaire. I just got a call from John, no, not John Farnham, but John Houston, who said that he is the best looking CFA fighter out there. And I don't know how correct he is. Yes, I do, he's lying. But a great track there too, so well done to John Houston. That's our new Farnsey, if only he could sing. Before we get into our our first guest, by the way, nice to be back too. We've had some issues here, but a good psychiatrist has fixed me up. No, nothing like that. Probably, maybe I should. But we're going to be talking about, isn't it interesting? They're going to destroy the planet to save the planet. And look at Australia. We have got a squillion major projects that are happening. I think about $1.3 trillion worth. And it's absolutely going to destroy Australia. And Tony Mildura, who thinks are the best things ever, you are just, you've lost the plot, to say the least. That's what I think anyway, because they are an abomination. And just as we're talking, my guest just disappeared. So we actually have, oh, she's back again. That's fantastic. Stephen, play this clip, Cam, and we'll just have a look. And don't forget, October 6th, make a note of that, October 6th. Cam, play Stephen.
On the 6th of October, World Habitat Day, we'll be releasing the most comprehensive mapping data done to date, showcasing industrial renewables across Australia. I don't think Australians really understand the tsunami of infrastructure coming down the line. Vast amounts of infrastructure, 31,000 wind towers, hundreds of thousands of hectares of solar panels. We are being silenced. Rainforest Reserves Australia, the organisation that I'm involved in, we have powerful vested interests trying to stop us. They are actively trying to stop us from releasing the mapping data that showcases what is going on around this country. Because I think they know that if Australians see this mapping data, they will be appalled at the industrialisation of vast areas of this continent. These are projects that are in the pipeline. They've been fast-tracked. And in actual fact, the EPBC Act is being revisited, redrafted, amended, purely so they can fast-track these renewable projects faster. It has got nothing to do with biodiversity. We've been campaigning for a revision of the EPBC Act for a decade, for the better protection of biodiversity. But this has got nothing to do with biodiversity. All of a sudden, it's all about fast-tracking, steamrolling a $1 trillion industry across the country. That is the driving force behind the EPBC Act amendments. It's got nothing to do with biodiversity. It is to facilitate a $1 trillion tsunami of infrastructure coming down the line. Anyway, 6th of October, stay tuned, rainforestreserves.org.au. Check out the website and see it for yourself.
That's right. It's a very, very serious thing. When we're going to just roll out these videos every program to show you how they are destroying Australia. It's just appalling, and they should hang their heads in shame. Now, our guest has got a very bad internet connection, I would imagine. So what we might do, because we panic professionally here, well, in front of camera anyway. Oh, we're back again, but Sandra Bourke is back, but I'm not too sure for how long. I see her and I don't see her. Sandra, thanks for joining us.
Hello, Mike. Yes, sorry about that. I'm actually out at Scones, so doing that rural thing.
Well, don't disappear. Hang around for about 20 minutes at least. Now, let me just introduce you. Sandra Bourke is a volunteer vice president of Rethink Renewables, at the National Rational Energy Network. The renewables, it's a bit like in the Vietnam War. I read that they destroyed a village, napalmed and blew up a village, and the reason given was to save it. It's a bit like Australia, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. What we are unleashing on Australia is on an unprecedented scale. Grid solar, thousands of turbines, BESS, and the massive road and infrastructure that's required, transmission to support all this. And it's not just the environmental damage or the damage to our farms and our oceans, it's the damage to our economy and to Australia's national security. So this is a very ill-considered thing we're doing.
How can we stop it? I mean, because we're talking expenditure, and October 6th, you'll see the map. The map will be out. But we're talking over $1.3 trillion. They have got so many windmills coming up. I mean, truly, if they do these windmills properly, I'm sure Australia would just take off and end up in the South Pole because there's so many. And the solar panels, how can we stop this? Because, and a lot of these investors are based overseas. They don't care what they do to Australia. It's all about money. And more importantly, it's not going to do anything. It's just not going to do anything for, this inverted commas climate change crap?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. And I think, you've got many issues there. So, first up, what can we do? Well, first of all, I think we need to make this an evidence based energy rollout. Australians have never sat down and been asked the question, what is the best energy mix for our country? Yes, we have all these great resources, but the current Labor government is putting ideology above evidence based policy. So, communities like the one I'm visiting tonight, for example, have to stand up and try and inject evidence, information, community concerns into the government debate. A government that is not listening, so our voices must get louder and louder. And to the second part of your question, you're absolutely right. We are seeing millions, up to $20 million between over 2 years, flowing into climate green groups across Australia who are actively fighting against Australia's well-being and best interests. This is a nation built on mining and coal, on farming, on our oceans and our people, and we are literally shooting ourselves in our foot. I just want to say too that democracy in Australia, we've all been a bit passive about it. We all have a responsibility to stand up and fight for this country and what our, my grandparents, your grandparents probably fought for as well. We can't just sit back and be passive and let us literally go down or up the creek, as the case may be.
Could you imagine, though, if we told our grandparents as they headed off to the First or Second World War that they're not fighting for Australians, they're fighting for windmills? Do you think we would have had many there? And it is so bad, though. But you mentioned that about Australians need to take more notice of democracy. It's called creep, and we've been focusing on that for many years. And that's why we have so many governments and departments loving us so much. Not. But the problem is, if you look at what happened with COVID, and people just rolled up their sleeves and went and got a jab they knew nothing about. Now, take away all the other bits and pieces. They're also doing the same with this. So digital ID will be in very shortly. The internet's going to be very hard to navigate because of Julie Inman Grant's perception of controlling it, and which most whether it's the opposition or whether it's government, they all believe government should control the internet. And then we have the renewables, we have all the climate change garbage and so forth. They're counting on most Australians, and we're sounding a bit radical here, but they're counting on most Australians to go, oh, well, it's for our own good. And we have to get through that apathy. How do we do that?
I think apathy is a very difficult thing to go through. I think with the amazing, astonishing up to 20% increase in electricity bills, even our Australians who are in the urban cities are starting to feel the negative impact of this transition. Apathy is getting people to wake up, to take responsibility. It's also at a systemic level, we need to push back against the propaganda. I mean, as you said, we're seeing censorship in our country on an unprecedented scale. We are slipping in world record rankings in terms of democracy and freedom of speech. And really, that is a hallmark of what makes a great country. So I think, yes, apathy, we have to hit people where it wakes them up, where it often even hurts them. And then at a systematic level, we have to push back against the e-safety commissioner, the misinformation bill. I mean, I watched the Senate inquiry last week. I'm mildly horrified that in some quarters in Australia, they are pushing to criminalise even challenging climate change. This is just groupthink. This is absurd. This is undemocratic. This is the thin edge of totalitarianism in Australia. And we have a responsibility to fight, a responsibility for all Australians, as well as the legacy of our, the men and women who fought for our nation.
Now, I'm just, there's a big report out. It's going to be made available to just about everybody, or to everybody. It is for everybody to look at, especially if you're an Australian. You should look at it. Can you tell us about the report that's coming out October 6th that's going to be showing, it shows the entire country. I've had a quick look at it before. It's horrific, isn't it? And there hasn't been a whole lot said about it up until now. And I believe that the organisation, Stephen fronts it, he's coming under a lot of heat to just go away. Tell us about that report and what you know of it.
Yes, so Mike, it's not actually a report. It is a live database using geoinformation spatial mapping. And what Steve at Rainforest Reserves has done and his team is amazing. They have used government data, project data to map the aerial footprint of every planned and current renewables project in Australia. That's onshore, offshore, turbines, grid solar panels, and it is truly horrific. We are seeing over 31,000 wind turbine towers. Now, you've got to remember they only operate 30% of the time. Almost all of them will be foreign owned, and they'll all need to be replaced in about 15 years' time. So you can think of our tips. You're looking at over 150, way more, 250 million grid solar panels, covering, in many cases, some of our best prime land. I've worked with farmers up in Billawheeler where we see Smoky Creek going in, the creeds, and their livelihoods are under threat. But it's not just that infrastructure. It's the 44,000 kilometres of these massive roads. They're really wide. This is huge infrastructure, not pretty little windmills. These are hard industrial turbines, taller than Sydney Point Tower. And the cost to the Australian, just for the first build, because we've got to keep redoing this, $1.38 trillion. So what Australians can do on World Habitat Day is they can log in for free. This is a non-partisan, fantastic initiative. And you can zoom in on your suburb, on your favourite, where you go for a picnic, and find out what renewable project is decimating that area anytime soon.
I mean, even we had someone on last week from WA and the Geograph Bay. I think it's between 4,000 and 8,000 square kilometres they're putting in thousands of these wind turbines or windmills.
Yes.
And just for example, the migratory habitat or habit of birds, they're not going to make landfall. They're just going to, there will be so many thousands of wildlife that will be killed. But that's not an exception. It's the same thing right throughout Australia. Look at Queensland on the Great Dividing Range. They're just going to bulldoze the top of it up to put thousands upon thousands of these turbines. It's going to destroy that habitat for all those animals, the eagles, all the birds, the koalas, everything. They're going to be destroyed. What's happened to the Greens, can I ask you, Sandra? I mean, once upon a time you had Bob Brown and Christine Milne and these, they were out there trying to save the environment. I would think the Greens these days are green by name only. And in fact, they are green. They go for the money. Same as the Teals. They're not a great organisation when it comes to protecting the environment. And we have a desecration by the government that are destroying the environment. Where are the Greens? What's happened to them?
Well, to be honest, the Greens are just not there when it comes to the environment anymore. No. We're seeing some inroads, like Steve Nowakowski, as you mentioned, was once a Green. But the Greens that we see now are more interested in foreign wars, such as the Palestine question, or being pro-Palestine. They're radicalised, and they seem to have forgotten that once they stood for the environment. But this is much bigger than the Greens. They've rendered themselves irrelevant in the economic debate. This is about every Australian standing up for our beaches, for our farmland, for our rainforest habitats, for our unique biodiversity. This is what got me started. I'm from Hawke's Nest. The government bulldozed their way in there without any pre-announcement or consultation, declared a turbine zone right off Hawke's Nest Beach, where our community, and my family in particular, has been working hard to protect Gould's Petrel, the only place on earth where it lives, just off our beach. So there's no consultation, there's certainly no Greens around, and they certainly don't seem to have any interest in protecting Australia's environment.
No, it's a disgrace to say the least. What about your area? How's it impacting that?
The introduction of the turbines into our community came with no consultation. We had a very small community, around 2,000 people. We met in our community hall and we decided to hold a protest. It was the first protest in my community's history. It didn't even make the news. The government did not care. They didn't come. And I think the worst thing for me personally, and a real turning point, was a Labor staffer drove 2 hours to attend our tiny little church hall meeting, and I was told that I should get over it, accept the turbines, and that they were watching me. And that's really what started me on the pathway that I am on now. When a government can go to the trouble of bullying and lying to a small community like ours, imagine what it is doing to the rest of our country.
Yeah, I think that person, I mean, you were obviously shaking and knocking your knees and you thought, what am I going to do with myself? Have a couple of whiskies maybe, what am I going to do? No, you fight back, and that's exactly what you are doing. Tell us what, because you were out at the Central West Orana Renewable Energy Zone last week, which is a mouthful, you need a drink to say that one. What did you see there, and what's happening in that region?
So I'm actually here right now. I'll be attending a function tonight with the Central West Orana region. And we are seeing out there friends of mine, farmers, prime agricultural land, beautiful rolling hills that will be covered by hundreds and hundreds of turbines and massive grid solar cells as well. So just to give you an idea of the size, sorry, it's a 20,000 square kilometre zone, but we're going to see 10 hectares already covered in grid solar, covered in turbines, and more to follow. The acceleration is disrupting communities. They're setting up, for example, I saw the camps they're putting for the workers. It's diverting resources away from the local community, putting undue pressure on infrastructure and roads. We're seeing many of the division where a lot of the communities that I spoke to are so overwhelmed or pressured by the proponents that they just give in, they just cave in. So I think what's sad for me is the landscape that I was in last week and I'll be in tomorrow will soon be lost for a very long time if some of the damage here will be permanent. The turbine cannot be completely recovered. They will leave all those concrete bases in when they build them. They will just cover them over and they cannot be reused. So then we have to build another set of concrete footings again. So it's very sad what it's doing to our regional communities. They are literally being railroaded.
You know what this is what we'll talk Aussie here, what I reckon. I reckon that, and it showed up with Bowen and Albanese and all the others jetting around the world to spread the good word about Australia, how we're going to motivate the other countries to dictate to their populations. And I reckon that this renewable push with $1.38 trillion spend first up, I reckon they're doing that because it makes, even if you believe in climate change, and there is climate change, but it's not man-made, and it's just it's a phenomenon that happens. But I reckon, this is what I think, that they're doing this only because it's a bloody big operation, and it's the biggest in the world. And Ego says that it will show the rest of the world that we're punching above our weight. Now, if they do believe in emissions and climate change and all those lies, the problem is though, we make no difference. So what we're doing is we're going to bankrupt this country, destroy the country, our legacy. We should be able to leave what we have now. We should leave it for our future generations. It should not be touched. And I mean, I said I don't believe in climate change, blah, 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 blah. However, I think, and that's where Bob Brown was good, because I always thought Bob Brown was a pretty logical sort of person, and Cradle Mountain and that sort of stuff, his past projects. I always thought that he actually had the country at his heart, in his heart. He was it. That was the country he was going to look after. It doesn't happen now. So I think the government is doing all these things because it's turning them on. They are doing terribly rude things to themselves when they think about what they're doing. This is so big. Tell me how big. Oh, that's so big. That's what they're doing. And I do believe it is a thing based on part ignorance, but because they can do it. And they're going to do it because we are going to do it, and you are not going to stop us. And the United Nations and Starmer and Trump and all those go, oh, you're a beautiful person. Look what you've done. You've built this magnificent thing. pity you haven't got a country to let your people enjoy it because the country is bankrupt. So I reckon that they're just doing this only because they want the world to notice Australia and these people that put it in as being, look, I can almost walk on water. What? I'm not the Messiah. But they would like to be. That's what I think.
I can understand why you would think that. It was astonishing to see at the United Nations last week Donald Trump saying it's a big green con, it's a big green scam. It's ironic to think that Donald Trump's speech might actually be illegal one day here in Australia, but he was trying to give us a massive wake-up call, and you're absolutely right. No, none of the egos up there listened. So here we are on this destructive path that I personally feel will cruel Australia very badly. And as a very good professor friend of mine said, it'll take us decades to recover. So really one of the reasons I'm being so active is we need to let everyone know about the destruction, the dollars, but it's a call to action. It's a call to Australia to step up and put our country and evidence-based policy first and not listen to the ideology, whether it's the radical ideology of the Greens, which has long since lost its way and focus on the environment, or now what I believe is the radical ideology of the Labor Party. So Australia, please wake up.
I hope so, because if they don't, they'll have nothing left.
No.
But we're getting to other areas other than the farming here, but it all changes in December with the E-Safety Act, or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
They've got things mapped out. I mean, just look at his trip with Starmer. Those far right people. You've got to stamp those far right people out. Farmers are far right. Farmers are great environmentalists. They actually look after the land, because if they don't, they go belly up. Simple
Absolutely, yes. I'm still yet to meet the mysterious far right, although I'm, being classified as you have as well. So I'll keep you posted.
I've seen hiding in actually, the far right are very, very bad people, because what I've seen them do is that they go and have cups of tea, they have sandwiches, they peacefully march. I mean, they're just shockers. I mean, they really are. No violence, which is terrible. I mean, but it's just terrible. Anyway, so that's the far right. And
Yeah.
You will notice them because they blend in, actually, to the crowd. No one knows that they're there, but they don't want Australia going down the path of destruction. And farmers, I talked to an ex-guest who probably tell me differently. They're very vocal, very good, but they don't want any of this garbage. They want to just make sure they can work the land, make some money, have a few beers on a Friday night, watch their football side play on Saturday, go to church on Sunday, and then back into it and look after the family. That's all they want, and that's all we want is to have a happy life, enjoy the country we live in, get out of our life, smaller government, blah 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 blah. That's what we want, and that's what we should have, and it's worth fighting for. Now, if somebody wants to join you on the good fight, how do they do that, Sandra?
Well, you can please reach out to any of our groups. I'm with Let's Rethink Renewables, so that's Let's Rethink Renewables.org. I'll send that through. Otherwise, they can just contact us directly, Sandra Bourke 300@gmail.com. We are across hundreds of groups and hundreds of communities, and we're more than happy to reach out and help. We have access to a range of resources, including legal and media expertise, and we're keen to help communities who are being adversely impacted by the reckless rollout of renewables. But as you mentioned, Mike, it's become much bigger than that. It's the small edge of a much bigger threat to our way of life, our country, and our democracy. So we urgently would like everyone to contact us and stand up. Thank you.
Pleasure. Sandra Bourke, 300@gmail.com. Sandra, I have to do more of these. This is just, I'm sorry, sometimes I get a bit ticked off. Actually, I get ticked off all the time, and I'm the guy that put in the corner with a muzzle in his mouth and a glass of milk. Just keep quiet, keep quiet. But I think we have to fight for our country. We've got to fight for the entire world, because it has been taken away from us, and not many people are doing much at all, and we've got to do more. Sandra Bourke, thank you very much for your time. This is the Country Telegraph.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephen Nowakowski, Vice President of Rainforest Reserves Australia. We're a grassroots volunteer organisation in North Queensland. We're about to release the most comprehensive mapping data showcasing renewables across the country on the 6th of October, World Habitat Day, on our website rainforestreserves.org.au. Stay tuned.
Back, Chris Lahy is an ex-dairy farmer and farmer advocate. I think Chris is a Essendon supporter too, so he didn't have to worry about being thumped on the weekend, but it was nice to see Brisbane win, wasn't it, Chris?
Yeah, our house is pretty excited. We had a couple of Brisbane supporters, so yeah, they lost their minds almost, and along with the Broncos winning as well. So I think I'm going to find a quiet place this weekend.
No, it's a big one I think on Sunday, so you can't find a quiet place. The weekend after, you're allowed to find it. Let's talk about water allocations and water rights. Tell us about the system and how it actually works at the moment.
Well, the water allocations, of course, people who are watching may not understand that there's a tri-state agreement between South Australia, New South Wales and Victoria, and all of the management is quite different. So in Victoria where I live, and I'm a former irrigator from New South Wales, so I'm only separated by a river, of course, my community to where I live at the moment. What they're doing at the moment is Victoria typically have enjoyed 200% allocation on their farms, and now that's been they've been, I think, now given 100% allocation. So what that means is traditional usages on the Victorian agricultural enterprises are now waiting, have to wait for when their allocations are increased to maybe plan their cropping or their irrigation or if they're dairying, of course, they've got to buy water, and that's posing a big problem with water in the open market fluctuating wildly over the course of the trading periods. So, for those people who don't probably understand, the water market was deregulated in the late 90s, which meant that water, typically at a base price of, say, in New South Wales where I lived, we enjoyed a price of about $70 to $80 a megalitre. And it skyrocketed to 275, and in the peak of availability, it went up to $400 and $500 a megalitre. So so that's what in our case on our farming enterprise, we were rice growers and also dairy farmers because we traditionally used 120% of our allocation, but that was taken away from us. So we basically forewent growing rice and to focus on other enterprises like dairying. So Victoria, I think, in a real spot of bother now with allocations only at 100% for farmers or less, and now they're scratching their heads, wondering when the increase in allocations may come, and how much is it going to cost. So it's a very, very uncertain time for irrigators on both sides of the river.
The Victorian side, you got even the other side too. You got what's the name? I think is it Penny Wong. You got Penny Wong and Dan Andrews who have a huge amount of interest in the water rights and allocations. Do you know much about that to talk about it?
Yes, I do, Mike. So Penny Wong, you've mentioned first up. Well, Penny Wong lives in the western end of the basin. So she lives on Lake Alexandrina, as a matter of fact, on the Coorong. So, and she has some farming property there. And yes, indeed, she has a very large holding of water allocations in the western end of the basin. So, and good for her. She's been able to afford to buy it, and I guess she trades in the water when it's best for her to do that. And same with Dan Andrews. Well, Dan Andrews is one of the larger holders of water entitlements in Victoria, and he has irrigation property in the Goulburn Valley. So, there was a time where when deregulation occurred in the water markets, that non-agricultural entities could actually buy into the water markets. So, I'm not certain if they've done it that way, but certainly their interests in agriculture enable them to buy entitlements like that. Yes, absolutely. And a lot of people are asking why. Why have we got politicians who are holding very large entitlements of water?
Is the system broken?
Absolutely, the system is absolutely broken, and that brokenness started with the deregulation of the water market. So, for those people who don't understand what deregulating the water market means, in a regulated world, we had a set amount of entitlements allocated to each property, and this is how it happens on both sides of the river, in Victoria and New South Wales. And traditionally, all allocations are never used 100% of the time. But with deregulation, what that meant was that water became a very tradable commodity, basically like a share. And what we found was allocations woke up, or what we call sleeper allocations became a tradable resource for speculators and for people who wanted to buy into making money very quickly. So what we saw was when the water market was deregulated, we saw the focus on saying that the basin was overregulated, and that meant that it was focusing on then returning the water back to the rivers, taking the water off the farmers, buying water back, all that sort of thing, all that sort of nonsense that we're getting at the moment. So,
Who are the winners and who are the losers under the current system?
the losers are clearly the farmers, because there's the people who are the end users of this product, and they're the people who are paying the most for it. The winners, of course, are those people who buy into the water market, speculators, water traders, and they are cashing in big time, making enormous profits. In fact, when the Wentworth Group drafted up the Murray-Darling Basin plan in its infancy, there was a lot of advice given to this group from speculators, market speculators from the United States, saying there is absolutely billions of dollars to be made from water trading. So there was a clear interest in being more efficient, getting that water into a position where you could trade it as a share essentially, and just make a lot of money. So back to your question, yes, farmers are losing out every single day. They have to use water, and those who are trading it and those who are selling it, generally corporate entitlements, are making the bucks here at the moment.
It's just terrible. Which farmers have the most to lose?
The farmers who have the most to lose would be farmers with low security water. But what is really remarkable about those farmers is they are highly exposed to cost variations for their farming operations. So let's now, I'm a former dairy farmer from the New South Wales Riverina, and what we're seeing both in Victoria and New South Wales is that we have farmers who have invested millions of dollars in infrastructure, be it infrastructure for milking their herds, and also farm layout, and they're at the mercy of low security water market availability. So you might find farmers, dairy farmers particularly, are trying to spend wisely, but they have to keep going. You just can't stop or turn the switch off when you're a dairy farmer. And same with rice growers. They need to know what their entitlements are so they can put in the acreages they need to, according to the available water they have to finish off their rice crops. And if the story is no different for the Victorian dairy farmers and for fruit growers in the Goulburn Valley, the Murray Valley, and in the Sunraysia.
Yeah, because I'm from the citrus orchard. Oranges and mandarins and lemons had to run away quickly. Otherwise, I would have ended up living on pecking oranges all my life. A terrible job. I mean, mandarins are the worst.
Well,
anyway, but
Michael, we see with the citrus industry that's been decimated by deregulation.
It has.
And it's an absolute tragedy what has happened to our citrus, and now we're buying international product to make it affordable. And our citrus growers are just pleading with the Australian public to buy Australian citrus.
But also in citrus, the bigger got bigger and the smaller got smaller.
Yes, Mike.
Tell me this: how would the big ones? They're still growing oranges, and an acre is an acre, or hectare is a hectare, and it's going to have X amount of trees. Tell me this: how do they get through it? And because you would imagine that it's all pretty much divvied out properly, that you pay X amount and you'll get that. So how do they survive, the big ones, and how do they get bigger? And the smaller ones, who are looking at that hectare, got smaller and smaller and ended up going out of business. What do you think? This is a leading question here.
Yeah, it is a bit.
Yes. So without getting yourself in trouble, tell me this: do you think there are some scurrilous activities?
When it comes to water, absolutely. The behaviour of water traders and those who purchase water now, what we're seeing with corporate farming is that they're actually quite able to buy large quantities of water, and it doesn't really affect their baseline. And it's corporate farming against family farms. The family farms are what we're seeing out of business. They just can't compete with the upward pressure that the purchase of corporatizing water entitlements make on the water market. So let's use an example. Let's say there's 50,000 megalitres up for sale for a parcel, and it's snapped up at the first posted price, which is generally the highest price, and then that may well be, and invariably it is, it's a corporate entity securing water entitlements. And for your average farmer, a dairy farmer, orange grower, a horticultural or vegetable grower, they're really struggling to compete with that. They're hoping that the market actually falls so they can actually make money on growing produce and growing water, because it gets to a point, Mike, where typically what I experienced in my dairy farming is that there's a certain price point where it's no longer viable to actually buy water to grow stuff. And that's what's happening now.
So when they again, because we're talking bush, when they dick you around, tell me, how hard is it then to run? Because a farm's a business, and if you have no certainty, how hard is it then to make a buck?
Well, it gets down to I guess the point where, and in our case, we were part of a very, very organised milk marketing system, and we spoke to our marketing accountant, and we said, well, what do we do? What can we do to stop the hemorrhaging of money? And he just said, stop buying water. So we then had to run a dairy farm without water, and this is typically what has to happen. You get creative, you get more efficient, you start putting more infrastructure in, and what we saw becoming of that situation is farmers started to invest hundreds of thousands, if not close to millions of dollars in water infrastructure like centre pivots, lateral irrigators, to try and make the little water they have go a lot further, which is a good thing. But they're forced into a situation where you've got your back against the wall the whole time. So what do? You either get out and walk away, or you just have to keep going. And for many, it's just getting further and further into debt.
Yeah, we had a channel behind our place, and it was full, and we used to get yabbies and stuff, and Dad and Mum would eat those because I felt sorry for the poor buggers, but they hurt when they bit you. But they covered that in big pipe, stop the evaporation. Is that a major problem with water, the evaporation? Because open channels, it just disappears.
Yes. So in Victoria, they've undergone a program of food bowl modernisation, which means that they've been lining canals, filling them in, and making them into pipe systems, pipes and pumps. And yes, absolutely, it reduces the losses. Evaporation certainly is a consideration for transmission of water, along with infiltration. So if you're going through a sandy piece of soil, water's just going to infiltrate and go down. That's how water hydrology works. So yes, but those losses in the whole scheme of thing are in the lower percentages in terms of losses. But it gets to a point, how more efficient can we become with our water? And I know in Victoria, here in northern Victoria, there's very impressive infrastructure upgrades to make that issue not so much a problem anymore. But yes, evaporation typically is always a problem when you have open bodies of water.
When you have the corporate influence and you have technology and scientists getting involved and government always involved,
Yes.
when you have all that, do you think it's a threat to the essence of farming, the heart and soul of the community?
Well, that's right. And thinking about some of the comments made by Sandra in your previous segment there, we experience, or we as farmers, as a farming community, have that same element where we're not informed, we're not part of the conversation. We are simply just overloaded and told this is what's going to happen if you like it or not. And what we find is we have these think tanks making policies in university settings, and none of them even bother to come out to see where the food that is produced that they're eating every single day. And if they did, I'm sure they'd have a different insight as to their policy settings. So policy settings are really hurting Australian farmers all over in terms of price setting for commodities, fuel, and certainly for those who irrigate in the Murray-Darling Basin. Policy setting on water is just, it's a nonsense, an absolute nonsense, and we're very dictated to by people who don't know.
Is farming is there a future in farming? Take away the corporates, of course, who just get bigger and bigger and bigger. But if you're just a bloke, family, a couple of kids, wanting to make a buck, enjoy life a bit, is there a future?
Well, I think so. The farming community as a whole is very resilient. We've had to take a lot of rubbish from government, both state and federal, and our farming communities have banded together. They're very bonded by a common quest to produce and feed, I guess, their families and a nation. And there's something that can't be broken, despite the being bashed over the head with financial wreckery or financial bastardry. So I think there is. Unfortunately, for younger generations, it's an onerous task if you want to buy a farm, because you need to be well bankrolled, or totally in for it, and you're up for the challenge. So I'm a little bit more optimistic than many. I believe that for so long as people realise where their food comes from, they will understand that they'll fight for farmers. And simple programs like stop buying, a discounted milk, buy co-opted milk, in your supermarkets, or go for Australian-made produce. And I think there's more awareness of that now. Pay a few extra dollars for something that's Australian grown and made. That will keep farmers in the game.
Isn't it funny? I love visiting the land, but I could never, me myself, I could never have been a farmer. I mean, we used to have a septic tank. It's a terrible story to tell at the end of the interview. And, and for some reason, every Monday morning, we had to give it a bit of a clean before school. And so I could truly, I was the worst farmer, but loved the land and loved the people on it because it's the communities. And I mean, as you get older, you look to a community because it's like a family. And if you do away with that, I think we do away with Australia. Great chatting with you, Chris. We'll do that again.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to another chat with you on the similar topic. It's such a broad topic that is only scratching the surface at the moment with our little chat. So yeah.
And if somebody wanted to get a hold of you to have a chat, share a VB. Now VB, by the way, we used to always drink that. I reckon VB is made by a chemical manufacturer or make oils, and it should only be used to clean the engine of your tractor because it tastes terrible.
Well, whilst on that note, support your local microbrewery or your craft brewery. There are lots of them across Australia, and they're all using Australian grain. So get into it.
They are. Now, if somebody wants to get hold of you to buy you a beer,
certainly. Well, if you just Google me or go on to the Australian Citizens Party, I've always been a federal candidate in my seat of Mallee, and you'll find all my contact details there, or Christopher Lahy at gmail.com. And you can have a bit of a read on my bio and the things that our party are all about in terms of water policy and fighting for the farmers. So yes, Mike,
just
that's
the part
where you can contact me.
Just the part on your bio where you say you're the best looking bloke. I thought that was a blatant lie.
Oh, come on now, Mike. I guess it's objective, isn't it?
It is. Look, great chatting with you. Always a pleasure. Chris Lahy, ex-dairy farmer and farmer advocate. This is the Country Telegraph.